Hi, how you doing? We're going to take a look at the backyard today, and I thought I'd show you a change that we've been working on back here. As well, I finally planted out all of those part shade perennials that I've been collecting, some of them since May, including a bunch of new and interesting Heuchera cultivars. And at the same time, I thought we'd take a look at some other perennials that are looking good in July. My name is Sharon, and I garden on a large yard in a small town in east central Saskatchewan, Zone 3. Welcome to my Sask Garden. So just behind me here is the change that I was talking about. For those of you who have not seen the backyard before, this used to be 2 tree circles for the willow trees, as well as where the flowers still are, sort of a brick square. And that was just something that kind of evolved over the years. The trees were small, and we actually had a third tree right in the middle. I don't remember what kind of tree it was, but it either died or we landed up taking it out. I just don't recall. So we had a bird bath there, and we just did a variety of things there in the center. There still is a bird bath, as well as a bunch of clustered bellflower. Now the clustered bellflower will be, as soon as it's done blooming, it will be moved. And then we're going to join it up a little bit more. So it's not quite done yet, but it's close. Also, if you recall a few videos ago, I had bought 3 large containers of sweet woodruff, and I divided them into 12 plants. I divided each container into 4 plants. My initial intent was to plant them on the long border on the north side, but then when I sort of came up with this idea to finally join all of this together and finally get that project done that I had been wanting to do for a few years now. I wanted to do something, I just wasn't sure, but the joining it all together made the most sense. So I landed up planting them into this backyard middle border is what I'm calling it now, and that should create a full ground cover, and we'll just get a little closer. And so here's just a little bit closer view. I planted out the sweet woodruff. There's 6 on one side and 7 on the other, because I did land up with 13 plants. As well, in the very center, I bought 4 tiarella. 2 are called Pink Skyrocket. I don't remember what the other 2 are called, but they're there mostly for a different type of leaf texture. As well, they do have a little bit of dark veining on the inside of the leaf. And they're going to have a little bit of a different bloom too. But my whole idea here is to have a pretty solid ground cover of sweet woodruff with the tiarella in the center. And so here's just a little bit of a closer view. Starting at one tree, there's some Solomon seal that is started. I want to have a ring of Solomon seal all the way around. And then we get into the sweet woodruff. Here is the tiarella. And there's one of them. I don't know which one is which. There's one and there's the other. I actually have 2 more that I'm thinking about adding, kind of a third on either side. There's the kind of circular half circle, part circle bench that is eventually going to join or come close to joining the other one. This is the area where the clustered bellflower still needs to be removed, and that part kind of finished up. And then more tiarella and the rest of the sweet woodruff. And then going over to this tree is the rest, again, Solomon seal on either side. Now the Solomon seal may eventually work its way in, because that's how it grows. It grows by rhizomes that creep along, but they are easy to move if they are somewhere where I don't want them to be. They're very easy to dig up and move. So overall, I'm quite happy with how this turned out. I like the way it joined it. I talked about this last year. Someone had, suggested kind of a kidney-shaped bed, and I had been thinking of that all along, of joining it up. And so I'm just pretty happy with the way it all turned out. And one of my goals for this year was to actually add more seating as well, which did take some thought. I didn't want a bench with a back on it or chairs with backs on them. I didn't want to stop any view from the upper deck. So low benches I thought were going to be the answer. And yeah, I just wanted to add more seating just to, you know, rest my weary bones and enjoy, sit back and enjoy the view from time to time instead of just bending over and pulling a weed or planting or dividing or digging up. It's really nice just to be able to sit and look at it from time to time too. I've been working on this long border, and I call this the north border or the long border. This is on the north side of the backyard. This used to be a full sun border, and it held all full sun plants. At the moment, it is still full sun toward the back of it, toward the fence. That is still full sun because the shade from the willow trees don't cast that far just yet. And so these are the willow trees that I'm talking about. They're 2 golden willow trees, and I really do like those trees. I like them for all the dappled shade that they do provide. And as well, there's some wind protection. Now, they are messy trees for sure. Willow trees just drop branches pretty much anytime you get a breeze. It's gonna drop a branch. We often call them self-pruning. Because the dead wood or the weak branches just kind of throw themselves out. And so we go around and we pick them up. So all this to say is I have been changing the back border from sun perennials slowly over the years, and I have been changing it into part shady type of perennials. And so I think that I've now finished that, at least, you know, probably 80%. I think that I will, perhaps even this year, dig out a bunch of columbine that I just don't like. And I'm pretty much done with keeping perennials that I don't like. And that will make room for some other perennials that I do like, because right now it's quite full, which is what I want. But I couldn't, you know, just add things without taking something out at this point. So let's take a closer look. We start off here at the back gate with a few young hosta. Some Virginia, those are the lower growing plants as well. I've planted in monkshood. Monkshood grows really well with very little effort in my yard. There is a peony here that surprisingly did grow and bloom well this year, so it's still getting enough sunlight here on this corner. This corner actually does get a pocket of mid-afternoon sunshine that's fairly strong. And below I've chosen Lady's Mantle, beautiful little plant. I love the blooms on it. Back here in the middle of the border, there will be peonies all the way along. I have 9 peonies planted throughout that border. And so as we go along here, we have more hosta. And you can see here, although I think this might be some in substance, that this might be just getting a little bit too much sunlight. So that might actually have to be swapped out for a darker colored leaf hosta. And here we have bugbane, and I'm thrilled with how it came back this year. I just planted that last year, wintered well, came back early and very strong. There will be a number of astilbe throughout the back here. I think 15 now, because I had 9 this year that I got bare root from Costco early in the spring. And I believe 6 last year, also bare root from Costco. They are growing and holding up and wintered beautifully. Also throughout, I've planted out my foxglove. These are foxy foxglove. I started from seed earlier this year. They've been planted out for some time and growing well. I'm just hoping now that they will winter because they're not really a zone 3 perennial, but I'm holding out hope. And just in front of the foxglove, going toward the front of the border, is Bistort, another astilbe, and this Heuchera right here is called Dressed Up Prom Dress, I believe it is. Now I planted one of these last year. It wintered well and is growing well, so this one I've just planted this year. And there is one of last year's astilbe, growing beautifully, growing quite tall. Another Bistort. This one has a dark pink flower. And in front of that Bistort is another Heuchera, and this one is Dressed Up Evening Gown. And this one is one that wintered, and so this is the current season's growth. I think it wintered really well, better than I had expected. There's a variegated leaf Jacob's Ladder. It had pretty blue blooms earlier in the season. And we'll try another Jack Frost Brunnera here. This has just been planted. I have so far had very poor luck with Brunnera, and so I'm hoping that I will have better luck in this border. And here's another Astilbe. That's this year bare root from Costco, and this one is just called Red, but I'm quite loving the color of the blooms. A few more hosta. Another one of those Astilbes from last year. Those are going to have a pinkish colored blossom, I believe. And this is another dressed up prom dress. Probably my favorite Heuchera so far. This one is called Peachberry Ice. Now these leaves here are just old leaves, and probably the whole plant looks better with those leaves removed. I added in more lady's mantle, more hosta, Astilbe. You're going to see this repeating sort of throughout, toward the back of the border now. Here I also have monkshood, and in the sunnier position that's kind of looking a little bit wilty, because that tends to be what they do sometimes, is Heliopsis summer sun, just about to come into bloom. Now this Heuchera is called Carnival Cocoa Mint, I think. I got three from the 3 different Carnival series. The one next to it is also Carnival. It's big leaves, and that one is called Black Olive. And beside Black Olive, I have another one called Marmalade, and another Peachberry Ice. And back here is a dark Astilbe. This is Dark Side of the Moon, along with another Marmalade, and then another Black Olive. And more hosta, lady's mantle. I have 2 of the Brookside geranium back here. At first I thought it was not going to be enough sun for them to actually put on a good show of blooms, but it turned out that they did bloom very nicely. A little floppy back here, even with a support, and that's, I'm pretty sure, just because of the fact that it doesn't have full sun. I have more of these planted in full sun, and although they got very tall this year, not as floppy as this one was, and they bloomed a little bit more prolifically. This right here is called Black Pearl. Very pretty flower stems on that, kind of a pinkish, little pink balls on it. And that's just planted in front of 3 of the Astilbe. Those were planted last year. So you can see how they came back so strong. Another Peachberry Ice, another Brunnera, and here is a Tiarella this is one of the Tiarella that I thought could be moved, possibly, along with another Black Pearl and another prom dress. This is a very strong grower, this prom dress, which is why I bought another 1 or 2 this year. And you can see the nice pink coloring on the flower stems. I really like that Heuchera. I think it's nice. I think the leaf color is beautiful, as well as the flower stems. And it does attain some height with the flower stems, but you know, definitely a see-through plant, so you're going to see what's going on behind it. And here I've planted in Jacob's Ladder, just in the back, just for some height there. Another plant I haven't had great luck with so far is Pulmonaria, or lungwort, and this one is Spot On, I think it's called. Just planted, and I have another one, a Pinkablu, that has come back to life in another area, and I'm going to be moving it back here somewhere. Another Tiarella as well. So just kind of a walk along how it looks this year. I'm hoping it will look even better next year. I do worry about losing, especially the Heuchera. I do worry about them, and I've also lost a stilbe in the past. So I'm hoping that they will continue to live. And I do like all the different leaf color back here instead of flowers. That's actually my goal here, is to get a lot of interest with leaf color instead of with flowers. I find that the plants that have interesting leaves come up and they need very little maintenance after that. They don't really need to be deadheaded, or they don't lose their interest because they are no longer in bloom. So that's my goal. We'll see how it works. And here on the west border, which is more of a sun border, although this corner or this edge is in a lot more shade. It definitely is in shade all morning, and then it is in more of a full sun position later on through the day, but we will see how it works out for the Astilbe and the Heuchera. This is another Heuchera from the Carnival series, and this one is called Rose Granita. And I've already noticed a difference in the leaf color sort of immediately after I planted it. It did seem to wash out the leaf color a little. When it was being held in a partly shady area, it was actually had a much more pinkish hue to it. Astilbe, I think this one is going to bloom light pink. And this Heuchera, I actually have two of these. There's one and here's the other, which is better looking. This is Silver Gumdrop, and this is the same variety that I lost last year after a particularly heavy rainstorm. I bought two more this year because I really still do like them, and I wanted to try them again. And so what I did actually this year for all of the Heuchera, when I planted them, I have very heavy soil. It's black gumbo, black and very nutritious. Anyways, when I planted all of the Heuchera this year, I put a small shovelful of gravel into each planting hole and mixed that in to try and increase how fast the water goes through. It's not that the soil has poor drainage, but it's just heavy. And so I'm kind of hoping that that's going to help, in particular, Silver Gumdrop. The others didn't seem to have too much of a problem. They survived quite well. And then this one at the end is another Rose Granita. And so we'll just take a walk along here and go over to the sunnier part of the yard where I have a few more of the sun perennials that are in bloom. Coming up to the area where I do have a lot of columbine growing. This is a very black flowered columbine. I don't really like it, and you can see that the leaves always get leaf minor. And I think I'm just done with having columbine in here, and I'm going to find something that I like a little bit more. I'm sure I won't have any trouble finding something. Getting into the sunnier part of the yard, so now my lilies are going to be coming into bloom. The Martagon lilies, that's what these seed heads are here. They're all out of bloom now, so are the Thalictrum. And then the lilies are starting. And some of them are full bloom. I do have a staggered bloom time going on with the lilies, the Asiatic lilies. And so that is quite nice to have different lilies blooming at different times instead of them all at once. Also blooming are seed-grown Shasta daisy. And I have to kind of get in here because this is the best view. And here is a clematis growing up this pole. Next year I'm going to have to try and train it more to the left because it doesn't really show from the front of the yard. And the wind, you can see, kind of wants to push it so that it's blooming, its blooms are facing the other way. So I do have chicken wire up that pole, and I do tie it with a bit of green twine. But it's growing beautifully this year, and I'm contributing that to all the rain we got, because I find that Years when we get a lot of rain, the clematis just excel, but years when we don't, you know, every year you learn a lesson, and I've learned this lesson before, that the plants that excel in years with lots of moisture, I have to take note of that. I have to make sure that they get that same amount of moisture in years when we don't get that rain. And then mixed in with all those lilies, the next thing that will be coming into bloom is a lot of daylilies in there, as well as Indian summer rudbeckia, which seeds out, and some act as perennial or short-lived perennial for me. They really do add something to this border. I think that I should put some summer sun heliopsis in here. And speaking of heliopsis, this is Burning Hearts heliopsis, dark foliage and yellow blossom with a red center. I really like that plant, and it's behaving beautifully this year. I do have a low tomato cage on it because in the past it has flopped, but I do find that heliopsis do that when they're young, and it's only when they get much bigger that they start to support themselves. This one is now reaching close to 5 feet tall. I'm looking at it eye level. The top blossom is at my eyes, and I am just over 5 feet. So yeah, that's a great plant, and that one now is about year 4, 5 perhaps. And here, just in front of the shed, in the rocks, and under the rocks is some gravel, a soapwort has decided to seed itself here, and I think maybe now this is its 3rd year of growth. I grew soapwort at one time, but I did find it a little bit too seedy. I think the trick with some of these that seed out prolifically is to have them front and center, so you do remember to cut off their seed heads before they actually set seed all over the yard. I think that it's, you know, it had the guts to seed itself there and grow there, and it doesn't get any additional water or anything. It just seems to be quite happy there, so it gets to live. Another plant that one has to be careful with is this kind of burgundy looking scabiosa type of flower. This is Nadia macedonica. This is easily grown from seed as well, and as well, because it's easily grown from seed, it will seed out. So again, I have to make sure that I take a look at these and cut off any spent blossoms so that they don't seed out. I did have a big seeding out problem with this plant at one time. I thought I eradicated it, but then this one popped up, and I kind of like the way it's growing through the fence, and kind of half on one side and half on the other. So again, I do let it live. It looks really nice as well with the clematis that is growing up just behind it. And I think it just kind of all goes well together. And here is the 2 of the Brookside geranium that I talked about earlier that are in the backyard, and these are easily 3 feet. It is just coming out of bloom, so it probably doesn't look all that great at the moment, and it probably in another week or so it's going to be cut back, but it did have a very long bloom period. I had another one. I'll put a photo up on the screen. The blooms were stunning for at least a month. Same with these, but yeah, Brookside, it's a great geranium. I'm really very pleased with it. And my patch of lamb's ear still continuing to do its thing. It just seems to really like this small little corner here that it takes up. I don't really have anywhere that I'd like to grow it otherwise, but I like having a little patch. I wanted to mention this plant as kind of something different that's a little bit interesting, and this is called Phlomis tuberosa, just coming out of bloom as well. And it's another plant that seeds out quite intensely, and so when the bloom is done, I do have to cut off all of the seed heads. I don't think the seed heads are particularly interesting anyway. It is, you know, for sure the blossom that is more interesting, and it really is a very full, very big plant. This one is easily reached 4 feet tall. And so I only have the one now. I used to have more of these throughout the backyard. They really, really flop if they are not in full on sun all day long. This is the border along the garage wall. This is the west side of the garage. And it has a lot of lilies and daylilies in here, as well as iris, provide the earlier bloom. Oh, as well, there's some a few echinacea and some phlox that are growing in here too. The other geranium just nearing the end of its bloom. This is the Boom Chocolata. This one again, I measured it earlier this year. It was a meter, or I think 40 inches in height. This one as well will be trimmed back probably within a week or so. And then it'll leave that really nice foliage. It's a nice plant. It's a nice geranium to have. And because I like it so much, I actually planted a second one that will be just behind right about there. And I think that will draw the eye nicely. To mention this yarrow, this is the Firefly series, and this one is Peach Sky, I believe it is. I'm liking it. The blooms kind of fade to a little bit more yellow. I'm very pleased with this. I planted this last year, so we'll see how it does over time, how aggressively it grows. Next to it is phlox. This is Pink Lightning. In a normal year, when this has just been planted, and so in a normal year, this should bloom at a later time, possibly after this Peach Sky has finished blooming. Here we have Baby's Breath, Gypsophilia, and this one is called Rosy Vale. It's a sterile cultivar, does not set seed, and it grows into, probably a 4-foot circle of like a cloud. Really is what it looks like. And I think I have 2 planted in here. I've always loved this plant. I've had them for a long, long time. I have 2 more that I'd love to move, but Gypsophilia grow with a taproot and can be a little bit difficult to move. Early in the spring would be the best bet. Just a few more perennials I wanted to take a look at in the gravel garden. Here is another yarrow. This one is again from the Firefly series, and this one is fuchsia. And another yarrow. This one, just can't remember the name of it. And just in front of that yarrow is Veronica spicata red fox. And here on the west side of the gravel garden, the Millennium Allium are just coming into bloom now. And here in full sun all day long, these hosta are really putting on a show with their blossoms. And always putting on a really nice show is this daylily. This is called Happy Returns. It's kind of a sister to Stella d'Oro. It just has a little bit more of a lemony colored bloom, but it would be about the same height and sort of that really high bud count. In behind are most of my mother plant geraniums, still in their pots actually. I just sunk the pots into the soil a little bit, and that really just allows me to water them and fertilize them separately. So that's it. That's what's been going on with us in July. It's been a kind of a busy month, and now we get to sit back and enjoy it a little bit, because when it gets hot, I don't really like to garden very much. Anyways, thanks very much for taking the time to watch this video today. I always appreciate you doing so, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up, maybe tell your friends, maybe a hype, and if you've not yet subscribed, I'd love for you to do that too. I hope you're doing well. See you soon.